Every single month, month over month, we're seeing record deliveries. This is as unusual as 4 feet of snow in the Florida Keys in July. It doesn't happen. It's an anomaly. From a historical context, I've been doing this 36 years. This has never happened. More than a quarter here and a quarter there. You're talking maximum deliveries into the COMEX month over month over month. The May contract was the biggest ever in the history of the exchange. And who's buying it? Nor would we if it indeed was the U.S. government under the guise of national security. Why aren't we hearing hedge funds say, yeah, we bought it? Why isn't Warren Buffett saying, yeah, I bought it. It's part of my new Berkshire Hathaway holdings. Why don't we hear any of that? Because this is a very big deal. It's no different than the People's Liberation Army buying it on behalf of China. This is a very, very, very national security type of deal. And I think someone got into Trump's ear and said this to him. And the minute he won the election, they called everyone and said, start bringing it home now. And we'll call it tariff threats. And that's what we're going to use to get it sent over here. But if people knew we were going to really onshore it because it's going to be part of a new monetary system, everyone would run to get it and it wouldn't be sent back. But under the guise of tariff threats to temporarily bring it here, great, that will happen. And I think that's what they're doing. Someone said to him, this is happening around the globe. I've been screaming this. Maybe he's been listening to me. Okay. I don't know. I've been screaming it since 2020. He's been on Fox
News, maybe, because he loves Fox News.
Well, that's the thing. Since 2020, I've been screaming it. And maybe someone said, if you don't do this, we're dead in the water on a future basis. So start bringing it back.
This isn't speculation anymore. May just saw the largest gold delivery in COMEX history. And it wasn't retail investors or hedge funds. According to Andy Schectman, it was something far bigger. A covert national security operation to bring US gold home quietly. Why? Because buried inside America's balance sheet is a little-known account, the gold revaluation account. And with every $4,000 increase in gold's price, the Treasury gets $1 trillion. Instantly. This is the one gold trick that can wipe out debt without raising taxes, without printing money, and without telling the public. And now it's being activated.
Does it legally matter on anything anymore? How many things have broken the rule of law? How many things on the Constitution are just disrespected? The very fact that we have money that isn't species gold and silver is treason. They tell us what we need to know. And if this indeed was look, Scott Bessent has the right through the Exchange Stabilization Fund to buy gold. And if it's national security, he can keep his mouth shut. And if it's done through a proxy bank like JM or Citibank, they'll keep their mouth shut. Eventually, it shows up on the balance sheet. Eventually. And I would argue that we know what we're supposed to know. Even the stuff that is declassified, they still redact stuff because you know what? It's national security. Well, this is national security on a much, much bigger level. National security for our grandchildren's futures, not just national security. After the threat of national security subsides, and if your goal is to reshore the gold that has been leased out and sent out, and we've been net exporters forever. We've been exporting the gold, maybe leasing it and making a return on it through the banking system. But instead, they're bringing it back. And if you have to bring it back at that level and do so quickly,
right,
well, you better do it quietly because, loose lips sink ships. And I believe in my soul that whoever's bringing this back isn't just Joe and Jane six-pack, and it's not even billionaires. This is, in my opinion, the Treasury or the Federal Reserve, and they're bringing it back using the Exchange Stabilization Fund and doing it through proxy banks like JM and Citi, and they're being like, shh, do not say a word because it's national security. And there will come a time when it comes out, but I can think of a million things over the last few years that were illegal, that just kind of happened and nothing happened about it. And I think legality and the Constitution is a convenient piece of paper, if you will, for these politicians when they need it. And if not, if it's too important for us plebes to know what's going on, well, that's how it goes. And we're sorry, but it was for all your own good. The way that the West has been doing it forever is by suppressing the paper price. But China caught on. And what I think China is doing is joining in on suppressing gold and silver on the COMEX, which suppresses the price. And then they go all around the world and they buy it up from places that do not reflect an increase in the price. They buy it from the miners directly. They buy it from other exchanges that don't have an effect on the price. The price is set in the West. And if they drive the paper price down with futures contracts, which we see all the time, they can then go buy the real thing at subsidized prices immediately around the globe, and it doesn't change the price. So I would argue the West is doing the exact same thing. Let me just say one thing. You know, I take pride in knowing that I've been right on a lot of stuff. But a lot of stuff I said, I had to connect the dots, and there are missing dots. And either I'm stupid or I'm courageous enough to say it publicly. And some things I've been wrong on, some things I've been right on. You can look at Occam's razor, connect as many dots as possible. And what does Occam say about it? Occam says that this is not just some normal tariff play. This is far deeper than that. And you look at the comments being made by Trump, he who has the gold makes the rules. You look at our Treasury Secretary who says we're going to remonetize the balance sheet and is a self-proclaimed gold bug. You look at Judy Shelton, who talks about gold-backed 50-year treasuries next year, where she says July 4th, 2026. It's coming, she said. She told me that. It's coming. He told me it. It's a big deal to him. The point of it is that there's so much smoke. Where's the fire? Occam's razor would say, yeah. And I'm courageous enough to say, this is what I believe. I guess we'll see if I'm right. Only time will tell. But I would bet my bottom dollar that it's closer to this than what we've been led to believe by the talking heads of arbitrage between London and the U.S. and tariff threats by Trump. It's way deeper than that. May was the largest delivery in the history of the COMEX. Scott, shut up. You're too early. Because he means it. I think he slipped up. Because if you look at the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet, it's $5 trillion. The largest asset, student debt, about 45%. Not monetizing that. The second largest asset is military. You're not going to monetize tanks and aircraft carriers. The third largest asset of the U.S. government, remember, it's only $5 trillion, just over, is land. You could monetize land by putting national parks and hotels and, putting amusement parks inside of a national park or a hotel or whatever you want to do with land. I guess it's possible to monetize it, but that's not it. I think he was talking about the gold and to remonetize it, because gold is held on our balance sheet in an account called the gold revaluation account. And you can't even make that up. And it has been revalued 3 times in this country, in 33, in 72, and in 73. It was revalued. And so to monetize the asset side of the balance sheet, what does that really mean? Well, that means to create value out of these assets. What asset on the balance sheet could we monetize? In my mind, it's the gold. And I think they revalue gold and monetize it and tie it to the system to lower borrowing costs and keep the system alive at the expense of the U.S. dollar. In a nutshell, that's my thesis. And James Rickards talks about $24,000, and the way he does it is dividing the money supply, I think M2, into the amount of gold that we supposedly have, which hasn't been audited since '53. And at $24,000, let's put it this way, every $4,000 increase in the price of gold gives the Treasury General Account $1 trillion free and clear. And the way that works is the Treasury issues gold certificates to the Federal Reserve. And those gold certificates give claim on the fiat dollar value of the gold, not the gold itself. It belongs to the American people and to the Treasury. But they give the Treasury certificate or the gold certificates to the Fed, who then prints the money out of thin air and gives it to the Treasury. So they would get $6 trillion in that example to pay down their debt, maybe to buy more gold, whatever it is they want to do. But in that example, it completely supports my thesis. If they do that, the dollar gets wickedly devalued. It becomes very inflationary, hurts the average Joe and Jane for a while, no question about it. And that does so by inflation and the higher costs of living. But what it does is it allows, at that level, it allows us now, for sure, you could peg it to 50-year treasuries, and the ability to stand for delivery on gold at maturity eliminates the need to have uber high interest rates based upon that devaluation and based upon that inflation and based upon our debt burden, which we're trying so hard to work out. And if you have those, in essence, Judy talks about a zero coupon bond where gold is the interest rate, gold is the inflation hedge. And if you have those kind of super low borrowing costs, you might actually be able to onshore and reshore your manufacturing a little bit easier to eventually, for our children and our grandchildren. You're going to see, if I'm right, the president would come on TV and say, we need to do this for our children and our grandchildren. And this is something that needs to be done. And by doing it with these borrowing costs at next to nothing, at a much higher gold price, which devalues the dollar, makes it easier to pay down the debt, you could actually try and grow your way in the future out of this problem. It is probably the most bullish thing that I think could be done for the United States ultimately. Why haven't they audited it? And people say, well, who trusts China? Well, who the hell should trust us? If the gold is supposedly there providing credibility to the United States, well, why won't they audit it? And even after a light is shown upon it, or maybe they're secretly buying it to refill it. Who knows what the motivation is? But you're right, maybe they are indeed buying more of it because they need more. Just like China says they only have 25 or 6 or 700 metric tons, and Alistair says they have 38,000 metric tons. 3 years ago he said that. So any nation that ultimately believed that gold would be reintegrated into the system would be as silly as a mud wall to tell the world how much they have and and what their intentions are or aspirations are in accumulating it.
So now you see it. The US government may have just unlocked the one trick that lets them erase trillions in debt without Congress, without inflation, and without warning the public. Gold isn't just a hedge anymore. It's the reset lever buried deep inside the Treasury's books. And that massive COMEX delivery? That wasn't a coincidence. It was the first move in a financial reprogramming we were never meant to notice. Until now. Now that you know about the gold revaluation trick they're quietly using to delete debt, you're going to need to understand what comes next. The next video on this channel exposes the follow-up move, one that could rewrite the rules for the dollar, for gold, and for your savings. Don't miss it.